The Bitcoin crash continues, and now even BlackRock is starting to sell off Bitcoin in large amounts. Attention, we just hit the highest ETF outflows since the introduction of Bitcoin ETFs. This is really crazy. Arthur Hayes is now even putting forward a scenario where Bitcoin will crash down to 70,000 US dollars. At the same time, however, we see two massive events taking place today, where one event even says, it is the most important event in Q1 here for Bitcoin and the crypto event. Both events could bring even more volatility to the market because on one hand, there are opportunities for upward movement, but there's also a chance that these events could lead to further sell-offs. I made a video this morning titled Bitcoin Crash, Even Worse, so definitely check it out. And indeed, that's exactly what happened. After the market opened here in the US, Bitcoin sold off massively. It dropped another $2,000 or so. At its peak, we were even at $85,000. You guys have to check this out. Here, it went down from $107,000 to $85,000. That's already about $20,000 that we've dropped down here. And yes, we have recovered somewhat, but we are still here in force. Currently in the red for the day. But I have to say one thing, because I've seen people in the comments saying, hey, if even you're turning bearish on Bitcoin, then something's definitely wrong here. No, I'm not bearish on Bitcoin. People misunderstood that. In the long run, it still looks super bullish. With Bitcoin, nothing has changed in terms of fundamentals. It's just the current sentiment that's making things a bit tough for Bitcoin right now. And that's described really well here. CSAT writes here, no need to panic. Bitcoin will not die, and you must always keep that in mind. It always looks like Bitcoin is about to die, but it never does. Earlier, someone commented, yeah, he's now in the third cycle. It doesn't faze him anymore, or it leaves him completely emotionless. And that's exactly the right mindset. Once you've been through it 2 or 3 times, then it's really not a problem at all. Then it's just a daily thing here. Bread with Bitcoin. You just need to know that there's massive volatility here. There are pullbacks, there are flash crashes, there are cascading waves, and so on. And you just have to keep that in mind. And we'll also get to the massive sell-offs happening in the ETF market and at BlackRock shortly. But we can clearly see that the price drives the news, and then you get predictions like this one from the CEO of Bank of America, who says there won't be any rate cuts this year, meaning no interest rate reductions. And that's really bad for Bitcoin. I don't think I need to explain to you that if there's no new fresh liquidity coming in, then the Bitcoin price is going to be held back. That's because Bitcoin is directly tied to the strength or weakness of the US dollar. And now let's take a look at the first event that's going to be really, really important today. And these are the Nvidia earnings. And here you can see how the entire stock and financial market is being propped up by just a few wooden beams, and those are supposed to represent Nvidia. Sure, you could say Nvidia is somehow part of the traditional financial sector, but what does that have to do with Bitcoin? But Nvidia is such a big company. If, for example, there are really bad earnings figures, then it could be that the classic financial market corrects downwards. That could pull Bitcoin down further. On the other hand, there probably won't be many positive surprises, but at best it will turn out to be okay and the market is not going to crash down hard. The market will just stay steady. It won't have much of an impact. So that means we might see some downward pressure triggered by Nvidia if things go poorly. We need to pay close attention to that. It won't massively impact Bitcoin, but it will still affect it a bit. Much more important is the next event that's coming up today. Here, Cynthia Loomis posted, today is the day. So, today is the big day, and now people are already posting that Senator Cynthia Loomis says, today is the day. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve incoming, so the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is coming today. The people have clearly misinterpreted that. It's not about presenting the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve today. I mean, they always turn just a few bits of news into a really, really big story. She says, now the Bitcoin Strategy Reserve is coming. Cynthia Loomis had made a post like this a couple of weeks ago, where everyone was saying, wow, the Bitcoin Reserve is coming and so on. But it wasn't about the Bitcoin Reserve. It was about completely different things. It's exactly about this. As it says in Forbes, the Bitcoin Senator will chair the first digital asset hearing on Wednesday. So today is the digital asset hearing here in the USA, where they're discussing digital assets. And a lot of people, or not a lot, but some relevant people, are saying that it's the biggest event in Q1 is for Bitcoin and the entire crypto market, and probably also for stablecoins. And who knows what else will be discussed there. We really need to pay close attention to that. I can't tell you right now if this is super bullish or if something totally crazy is going to happen. I mean, Cynthia Loomis is posting this really big. Today is the big day. It seems like something big is happening or something. But we've often seen in the past that it turned out to be just a nothing burger, and that not much has happened here. That's why we need to take a critical look at this. If something spectacular happens here, I'll definitely report on it. I mean, that would be good because it could give Bitcoin a bit of a boost here. But we see at the moment that the sentiment is still really, really bad. And then we really need some good news to get out of this sentiment. But as mentioned before, we've often seen in the past that it can happen very, very quickly that we break out to the upside again. And often those were just fake outs. So that means we had about a week of panic. Then everyone went crazy. Or sometimes it was just a day or two or so, and then it bounces back up relatively quickly. We also see in the statistics that a record number of weak hands are being wiped out here. In this crash, countless short-term Bitcoin holders sold in a panic at a loss. Bitcoin tourists leaving the ship means that this is bullish for Bitcoin because we're seeing a bit of a cleanup here. So you can see this as bearish, saying, okay, hey, crap, a lot of people are selling here. But we also have to assume that there are opportunities for crashes to redistributing Bitcoin from weak hands to strong hands, and those weak hands are getting flushed out. Then we have an even stronger foundation to shoot back up to new highs. And here we can see that very clearly. You can see that in the statistics. Here, 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 here. You can see when the weak hands sold. And I'm really noticing right now that there's a huge, huge difference between people who say, hey, this is cool, this is a buying opportunity, and other folks who say, hey, I'm new to Bitcoin, I'm here at the all-time high came in at 100,000. And when it crossed that 100,000 mark, I was like, what the heck is this? And that's the process we keep seeing. Every cycle, we see the same process where new people get drawn in by the higher price. In Bitcoin, that means people aren't coming in because of the fundamentals, but because of the high Bitcoin price. Then a whole bunch of new people coming into the market will be exit liquidity for the whales who are selling Bitcoin during the upward move. Like when Bitcoin goes from 100,000, it's gone up to 107,000, then they start selling off. Here come the whales because they know, okay, now the sentiment is really, really good. Now we're starting to sell off. And these whales are just waiting for the pullbacks to happen again because everyone knows that in every bull market, there are 20 to 30% pullbacks. And we're seeing that pullback right now, 85,000 US dollars. And then we see the exact opposite. The people who came in new at 100,000 US dollars are being used as massive buying opportunities because those folks are weak hands. Then the price drops by 10%, they sell, and then the price drops even further, and we end up down 15, 20%. And then we go up here. 85,000, all those weak hands, as you can see in this chart, are selling off then. And what do the whales do now who used the upward trend from 100,000 US dollars to 107,000 US dollars to sell? They buy back in at the bottom around 80,000 US dollars. And that happens over and over and over again. And some of those weak hands manage to do this. Questioning yourself, okay, why is the Bitcoin price crashing right now? And then they try to find answers here. Some might end up on my YouTube channel or on other YouTube channels or reading any books. Feel free to hit that subscribe button so the channel can really take off. I see that in the last few days, we're really picking up speed here. A lot of views on the videos. Thanks again for that. But some people manage to educate themselves and question, okay, what's up with the volatility? And people persevere and people become strong haze in the long run. And that's also the foundation of Bitcoin. And that's why Bitcoin won't crash to $20,000 or anything like that, because we have to assume that 60 to 70% of the Bitcoin network is made up of these strong holders. That means the weekends are pretty much played out now. There aren't that many weak hands left. Sure, there are still some weak hands out there, but not nearly as many as before. And that's something you just have to keep in mind. And now let's take a look at what's currently going on with BlackRock, because that's always such an indicator. When BlackRock sells Bitcoin, everyone just goes completely nuts. BlackRock is selling Bitcoin, BlackRock is selling Bitcoin. And then there's always more panic in the market. And I already reported that yesterday, or was it the day before yesterday? No, I reported it yesterday that BlackRock sent Bitcoin here to Coinbase. Now we see the confirmation that BlackRock has sold here. You also have to say, yeah, I always say, BlackRock is selling. Those are actually BlackRock's clients who are selling. So it's not BlackRock itself that's selling, but the clients bought Bitcoin ETFs from BlackRock, and BlackRock is managing those. And now the clients are selling. And then BlackRock has to execute the order accordingly. And here we really see the massive sales happening with the Bitcoin ETFs. Fidelity sold 3,920 Bitcoin here. That's the biggest sale since the ETF launch. You guys have to check this out. Then we have BlackRock selling 1,865 Bitcoin here. That's the second largest outflow since the BlackRock ETFs came into play. And now people are just losing it. And that brings even more panic to the markets. It even says here with the block trainer about record losses. Almost 1 billion in just one day. The US Bitcoin ETFs saw massive net outflows yesterday totaling 937.99 million US dollars. This represents the largest daily capital flow since the introduction of these financial products. Fidelity's ETFs were particularly affected, losing 344 million US dollars, while BlackRock's was down 164 million US dollars and Bitwise with 88 million US dollars. Also, the grayscale ETF GBTC, like most others, which had already shown a downward trend in the last few days, lost another 66.1 million US dollars. So we see here the ETFs have now lost their momentum or the massive upward drive That has always been an indicator in the past. Okay, when the Bitcoin ETFs go up, then the Bitcoin price goes up too. When the Bitcoin ETFs are moving sideways, Bitcoin moves sideways too. And when the Bitcoin ETFs go down, then Bitcoin also shows weaknesses or has trouble gaining momentum. Is this whole situation concerning now? Is it game over for Bitcoin now? Is Bitcoin dead now? No, Bitcoin is not dead. And this is just a snapshot, but you shouldn't overrate it either, because there's a huge panic being made about it. BlackRock just sold about 2,000 Bitcoin. On the other hand, there were days when BlackRock bought over 10,000 Bitcoin. That means you always have to see it in relation. So the general trend here is that BlackRock is buying up Bitcoin massively. And of course, we always have pullbacks. It's not just a straight line up. We just need to keep the general trends in mind. And the general trend with the ETFs is just number go up. So whether it's Bitwise, BlackRock, ARK, or any other ETF you look at, the general trend is just up. And that needs to be said very clearly here. But still, there are also some very bearish people like Arthur Hayes. And I actually said this about a week or two ago, that a pullback to around 75,000 or 80,000 could likely happen, at least according to Arthur Hayes. Now he's confirming everything again. And talking about the scenario that I already mentioned, I don't know. Feel free to check out the videos 2 weeks ago or a week and a half or so. I don't know, I posted it at some point. I already talked about Arthur Hayes' scenario. And he's confirming everything again and raising the stakes here. And he says, now let's relax, step back, and wait to see if Trump can get his budget, which spends more. And raise the debt ceiling. Will the capitulation happen at the level of 75,000 to 70,000? US dollar picked up again before the election victory. This is a test of how much influence Trump has on the Republican Party. So he definitely sees Donald Trump as a trigger for this crash. Donald Trump is bringing uncertainty into the market with all the tariff stuff, where he says, okay, now the tariffs are being imposed in Canada. And where else was it? In Mexico, 25% tariffs. That has triggered some uncertainty again. But you also have to say about this bearish prediction that Arthur Hayes still claims that Bitcoin could reach, 500,000 or some other ridiculously high number this year. Or was it 400,000 or something like that? And in the long run, he sees Bitcoin hitting 1 million. That means all the bears, including CZ, he said that Bitcoin will crash from $101,000 to $85,000, and then it will reach 1 million. So all those bears who correctly called the crash, who predicted it right, they're only bearish in the short term. And that's also what I mentioned earlier in the video. Hey, in the short term, it looks kind of shaky and all that. We could still go down to 70, maybe 75, or we might just stick around 80 or something like that. Nobody knows that. But that doesn't mean it isn't bullish in the long run. Because the reset means, again, here, bad liquidity flushed out. That means weekends flushed out. We now have a stronger foundation. And that's always the case with Bitcoin. You always have to rise in stages. You always have to keep climbing. Then new euphoria comes in, the price goes up, and then the weak hands need to be flushed out again. They get liquidated, washed out of the market, and then we have an even stronger foundation. Then we rise again, and new weak hands come in, and we have to flush them out again. Then we keep climbing, more weak hands come in, and we have to flush them out again. And that's how we see this cascading effect always moving upward. But in the long run, historically speaking, there's really only one direction, and that direction is number go up. And if you're bullish on Bitcoin right now, I'll drop a link for you below. 21 Bitcoin. You can easily and safely buy Bitcoin. I see you guys are buying here right now. Congrats to everyone who can buy Bitcoin right now. I've also seen some sayings in exports. People are saying like, wow, I've leveraged everything I can leverage. All the liquidity has been freed up where I can still pump more into Bitcoin. And so you always have to be a little careful not to over leverage yourself and all that. But definitely down here, get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. And let me know if this crash is leaving you cold. Does this leave you feeling emotionless? Do you see it as an opportunity? Or are you here panic selling and belong to the weak hands? See you later, folks. Peace out.